You're crouched in tall grass with 3 other people. A herd of animals is grazing 50 meters away. You need everyone to move at exactly the same moment, in exactly the right direction, or the hunt fails and everyone goes hungry tonight, and you have no words to explain the plan. Right now, you probably said something to someone in the last 5 minutes without even thinking about it. A full sentence, built instantly, understood instantly. That ability feels so automatic, you've never questioned where it came from. But for millions of years, your ancestors didn't have it, and they still managed to coordinate hunts, raise children, and survive together anyway. Let's start with the timeline, because it's more extreme than most people expect. In 2017, linguist Shigeru Miyagawa, along with researchers publishing in Frontiers in Psychology, reviewed the fossil and genetic evidence for when spoken language likely emerged and placed the earliest probable date somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 years ago. But Homo erectus, an ancestor of modern humans, was already using stone tools, controlling fire, and migrating across 3 continents almost 2 million years ago. That's nearly 1.8 million years of cooperative, coordinated human behavior with no spoken language as we understand it. So how? The first clue comes from your own body, right now, as you're listening to this. In 1996, neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolati's lab in Parma, Italy, made a discovery almost by accident while studying macaque monkeys. They found neurons that fired both when a monkey performed an action and when it simply watched another monkey perform that same action. They called them mirror neurons. Later research found similar systems in humans, concentrated in regions of the brain associated with movement and, notably, with the areas that would later become critical for language. This suggests something important. Before humans could describe an action in words, their brains were already built to understand actions just by watching them. Which brings us to gesture. Anthropologist Michael Corballis, in his research on the origins of language, argued that the earliest form of complex human communication almost certainly wasn't vocal at all. It was the hands, a pointed finger, a raised palm, a specific motion mimicking the action you wanted someone else to take. And there's a reason to believe this wasn't primitive or limited. Modern sign languages, studied extensively by linguists, demonstrate full grammatical complexity, capable of expressing abstract ideas, tenses, and nuance every bit as sophisticated as spoken language. If gesture can do all of that today, there's no reason to assume early gestural communication was crude. Now think back to that hunt. You can't shout across 50 meters of open ground without warning every animal in range, but you can catch someone's eye, point 2 fingers toward your own eyes, then toward the herd. Flatten your hand and lower it slowly, meaning wait. Make a short chopping motion, meaning now. None of this requires a single word. It requires only that everyone in the group has learned, through years of living together, exactly what these specific motions mean in this specific context. There's physical evidence for this too, and it comes from an unlikely place: the bones in your neck. In 1989, researchers examining a nearly complete Homo erectus skeleton known as Turkana boy, discovered in Kenya and dated to roughly 1.6 million years ago, found that the thoracic vertebrae, the bones running through the upper back, were narrower than in modern humans. This matters because those vertebrae house the nerves controlling fine breath control, the kind needed for the sustained, modulated exhalation that spoken language requires. Turkana boy's anatomy suggests he likely couldn't produce the kind of controlled vocal sounds you're using to think through this sentence right now. His communication, whatever it looked like, was almost certainly not spoken language. So if you traveled back to stand beside him and his group, what would you actually witness? Probably something closer to an elaborate shared choreography. Specific gestures repeated so consistently that everyone in the group understood them instantly. Facial expressions doing enormous communicative work, a species already known for having more expressive faces than almost any other primate. Vocalizations, not full words, but distinct grunts, calls, and tones, each one meaning something specific through repetition and shared context. Not primitive noise, a complete system, just not the one running through your head right now. And here's the detail that should genuinely surprise you. This system worked well enough to accomplish almost everything language does today. These groups coordinated complex hunts against animals many times their size. They taught children how to make and use tools, a process requiring precise, repeated instruction across generations. They navigated conflict, cooperation, and social bonds inside groups of dozens of people. They migrated across entire continents, adapting to environments nothing like the ones they evolved in, all of it without a single spoken sentence. So why did spoken language eventually emerge at all, if gesture and vocalization were already working? The leading theory, supported by researchers including Corballis, points to something practical. Gesture requires visibility. It doesn't work in the dark, through dense vegetation, or when your hands are full carrying food, tools, or a child. Spoken language freed communication from line of sight entirely. You could warn someone of danger around a corner, coordinate in complete darkness, communicate while both of your hands were busy doing something else. It wasn't that gesture failed, it was that speech did something gesture structurally couldn't. Here's the full picture. Nearly 2 million years ago, your ancestors were already cooperating, hunting, and surviving together using hands, faces, and sounds with no spoken words at all. Somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 years ago, something shifted and true spoken language emerged on top of a communication system that had already been working for the entire history of your genus. Every sentence you've ever spoken is built on top of nearly 2 million years of a completely different system, one that worked well enough to get your ancestors across 3 continents before a single word existed. The next time you talk without thinking, without effort, without noticing the miracle of it, remember what came before it. Hands in tall grass, a pointed finger, a raised palm meaning wait. Language didn't start with words. It started with everything words eventually replaced.